Hey, good morning, Senator Carter. How are you today?
Hey, really good, Tawny. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, we are blessed to be able to speak with you every week to get that insight for District 32. I don't think you realize how many people really enjoy hearing it direct from your mouth, not from the rumor mill, not from the KZRG or the different talk shows, but directly from you. I know I appreciate it. And I've been talking to a lot of the constituents, trying to get some feedback on what they think. And so I get an earful from them. So towards the end, maybe we can talk about some of the grassroots things that's going on. So it's been a busy week. What's been going on?
Well, it wasn't as busy as it could have been, right? We
Right.
adjourned on Tuesday. You had the parade in Kansas City for the Chiefs to celebrate that victory. And so there was a consensus with our leadership that we would adjourn. They weren't sure we could make caucus. So they decided to go ahead and adjourn for the rest of the week so people could make the parade. So I ended up packing up and coming home early this week. So that was a little bit nice. It gave me an opportunity to work on some things here at home in the district. So always glad to be in the district and among people here.
Well, I know IP, the initiative petition reform, that's front and center. And the week prior, they said that they were going to get to it this week. That was the promise for allowing the governor's appointments to get passed. And so it didn't happen. So I know there's a lot of upset people across, uh, the district and Missouri. So why do you think? I understand the Democrats also filibustered. Is that correct?
So they did, and so it I mean depends on what you consider bringing it up. I mean they did bring it up. It did come to the floor. The Democrats did filibuster. I think they for a day and a half, or was it 2.5 days? And it wasn't. It was for a few hours each day. And so it's just so ironic. I'm a citizen first, right? Like I just have to
Right.
lay it out there. I'm a citizens first, and I'm not looking to blame. I truly am not. But it's so ironic to me that we will fight our own party, or the sentiment is if we stand up and fight for something, we went all night. I mean, they made us go all night. Then they
Right.
stripped us of our chairmanships and parking spots. And, there's an illusion of they haven't come out and said it so much. But there's this sentiment that we won't get any legislation passed by our colleagues who have chairmanships in these committees. And so it's so funny to me that we'll do that to our own party, moving a piece
Right.
of legislation that was supposed to be a number one priority. And yet, when the Democrats filibuster, they filibuster for 5 or 6 hours, and then we adjourn, and everybody goes home, and then we pick it up the next day for half a day and adjourn. And so there's no penalties, right? There's no not, and I'm not advocating for that. I really truly feel like that's the beauty of the Senate, is that people can
Right.
have there should be this intentionality about what it is, what policy we are trying to get across the finish line. So I'm in no way trying to advocate for silencing someone, but 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 that should go for us as well, right? Like, to be able to stand up and say, guys, is this not a priority, and here's a potential rule that we could use to move this forward. um, that was the intent of standing up and making that motion, and making it a priority. So
Now, like me, I talk to a lot of Americans across the country. I have friends from all over. And, I think as Republicans, we've seen what's happened over the last several years on a national level with Mitch McConnell. We elect these people on the platform that they ran, which was a conservative platform, that they were going to go out there and carry the water for the conservatives in America. And I think there's some parallels between what's going on at the national level and with what's going on in Missouri. Um, you know, when we look up there, and reform has been on the priority number one list for the last several years, but yet we have a complete leadership of Republicans. They could pass it in an hour if they wanted to, but yet we've drug our feet for years. And the other day I had a great friend that was in Walmart parking lot with his wife, and he was approached by somebody with a petition, and they said, would you need to support women's rights? Will you please sign this? And then when you ask them, well, what is it all about? You get a one, well, we're here to support women's rights, and that's all you get. But when you start digging into it, there's a 34-page document that's behind that petition, and it's basically to approve abortion in the state of Missouri.
Kind
So it's not the fact that they're going up there and presenting that argument, because everybody has that right. But when you're misleading citizens inside of Missouri, that's something that should not be allowed. You should not be able to misinform somebody that's signing. So I got a message to all of our audiences. If you're in the parking lot and you get approached, don't sign it without reading the entire document. If they won't provide you with the entire document, don't sign it. And then go back and look at what that petition is. Look it up online. Go call you. I mean, you know what the petition probably says. So, what's your feelings on not only we're upset with the national Republicans, but it's really starting to hit close to home, because a lot of these people, like Senator Rowden's running for Secretary of State, Senator Holly Rader's running for Lieutenant Governor. So you have, even Senator Eigel's running for governor. So you have a lot of these games being played, and the people that suffer are we the people.
Well, and look, like I said, I'm somebody who's always I my allegiance is to the truth wherever it lies, right? Like sometimes we are so fractured by having to pick sides and wear a certain jersey and stuff, and my allegiance is, and the perspective that I have is, sometimes there's an element of truth on many parts. So trying to discern that, like Winston Churchill, it's one of my favorite quotes. Winston Churchill said one time that truth is so important, something to the effect of so critical, that it's often surrounded by a bodyguard of lies. And so
Yes.
sometimes really trying to understand who the bad actors are, who the good guys are, is not, it's not as easy, because not everybody's wearing a different jersey. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And jerseys change based on the issue. So you can be aligned with somebody else because the principle of truth is there, they understand it, and then the next minute it's somebody else. And so
Right.
navigating this is so tricky, and I think that's why we have to be so honest about where we are as a country and even amongst each other, because there's not a corner market on necessarily all of the truth. And so trying to discern all of it is, right, it's a full-time job. But I totally agree with you. There's a lot of people, even on social media, that people will say, you're trying to take away the right of the people to have a voice. No, we're not changing the IP process. We're not changing the initiative petition process. What we're changing is ratification process, right?
Right.
I filed an initiative petition to try to get parents to be able to have those parental rights. And so I'm somebody who used that process to try to do
Right.
something. There's no way that I would try to eliminate the voice of the people, but at the same time, how we ratify our constitution and change our constitution does need a broader swath of consensus among individuals and citizens in our state. I don't think that three urban areas should be able to determine how the rest of us live.
Not only that, I think when we look at radical influences that are coming from outside of our state to make decisions for Missourians, that's what upsets me, whether it's a Republican led PAC or a Republican radical group that's trying to influence from outside into Missouri, or whether
Right.
it's a Democrat. Because I found out that there's some Republican big money special interest groups that are funding some of the individuals in our legislature that you would think are true conservatives. In reality, they just stay on course just enough so the special interest groups can get what they need to get done in both the House and the Senate. So it's almost like they've bought and paid for, and they're not even from Missouri. So I
No,
mean, Missourians need to wake up to the fact that our legislators are selling them down the street. They're selling them
well,
down the
right.
river.
And the temptation again is it's so messy and conflict, that's the sentiment, right? Like you can't have these kinds of conversations because, we have to stay on the same team. We have to wear the same jersey. And then that's got us where we are, where
Right.
you can't stand up or speak the truth because otherwise you're drawing fire on your own people. Well, if I work from the place of, if the intent is to serve the people, which I believe the Republican Party does the best at that, then I want somebody to call me out when I don't have, right, the integrity of the party or principles, not so much the party, but the principles of the party are, I'm deviating from that. And I think it's
Right.
healthy to call each other out and to say, look, is this your intention? Because if it's your intention, I mean, again, I go back to my experience in the Capitol, during COVID when they were locking the churches down. I went to my Republican senator and said, why are you sponsoring or co-sponsoring this piece of legislation that gives our small businesses, makes them complicit to an unchecked Department of Health and Human Services to shut us down, but our hospitals and nursing homes and manufacturers of vaccinations have absolutely no liability. So there's
Right.
just this dichotomy that we have to work through. And that's why I think it's so important that people come together, like conversations like this, to say, look, I'm not on, I'm on team truth. I'm on team we the people. I'm not on team narrative, where you have to say certain things. And no, I
Right.
sincerely want the truth. So you're right. You're absolutely right.
The truth is, the truth is always the way.
Yep.
Uh, and it will always come to light eventually. So a lot of these people that are doing backroom doors and trying to hide the truth, like these petitioners that are coming into our parking, those people are getting paid $30, $40 an hour. With
Right.
they don't care, they don't even probably know what it is that's on the ballot
Well,
or
and
on
their
the
goal is to try to
petition.
hit, they have a quota that they're supposed to hit. I think it
Right.
was 300 signatures a day. And so
And,
anyway, no,
and when you,
it's so on this initiative petition, what we see on the ballot now is where they're gathering signatures is for abortion to be full term abortion. Um, and your Second Amendment rights being eroded
right,
and ranked choice voting, which has decimated some of the other states that have implemented it. And so it's just critical that and I know, like I said, narratives spin out there, people saying, you're trying to take away the voice of the people. And it's like, on one hand, you're trying to say, gosh, there is really a need here. We have to address this as a people. So you want people to be engaged and kind of riled up. But at the same time, you're trying to also calm people to say, look, like, let's have a broader conversation about what this is, especially with people, that you don't necessarily align with politically, and then to say it's not about that at all. But I don't want that weaponized against you, no different than I want it weaponized against me. So,
yeah, I think that's all really the American people want is just the truth. They don't want deception.
right,
If you're in a leadership position and you're being influenced by a special interest group not to sit on something, let the people know why you're sitting on it. If
right.
you sit on something for 4 years, but yet we've got to push it, and then you blame everybody else why it's not being passed, and you've had every opportunity to pass it, you've got to at least stand up. And if I don't want somebody running for Secretary of State, and I know this isn't you, this is me speaking. I don't want somebody like a Senator Rowden running for Secretary of State if he is going to be double faced. I want him to be honest with us. We want initiative petition reform passed. We've sent you there to fight for that on our behalf. When he stands up and says, "Well, I got more friends than you guys do, and it's going to be my way or the highway," it just makes us sick back here at home. It's like, well, what are we even in this process for if this one guy, you know, controls everything and he
Well,
won't let.
that's funny because I had a conversation with a senator, and again, it's not personal. If it was, I would blast them. But policy wise and principally, it's very wrong. It's systemic. Where, well, if you don't do what I think you should do, it doesn't matter the merit of the legislation. It's because you're not doing what I think you should do, and you're saying things that I don't think you should be saying.
Right.
And I mean, how did we get where we are? It's with a culture like that, right? Where you can't come out
Exactly.
and sell things on the merit of policy, but you have to just speak and kind of. I mean, honestly, it's like the mafia to a certain.
it it's like that House of Cards. I know I don't want you to watch it because it's not it's X-rated probably, or R-rated at least. It's pretty vulgar, but there's some parts in there that just shows you how dirty the politics are. So I feel for people like you and Senator Eigel and the other and Senator Moon that come out there, and you are representing the people in your district. That is your job. Your job is not to kowtow and say, and when Senator Rowden comes, you say it's either you're going to represent your people or you're going to do what I say, or I'm not going to pass any of your legislation.
Right.
And
They make
I
you can't represent your people, right?
right,
Unless you
and
do what they say. And so in that regard, like I said, you're kind of a captured I mean, it's
it's
pick
my
your
it,
adjective, but they're holding you
yeah,
hostage. They're holding my district, 180,000 of you, hostage because
right,
I'm fighting for the things that you say you want. And
right,
that's what makes it difficult. So I will have to say, to give a little bit of kudos, I've talked to leadership, in particular, our floor leader, and just said, look, some of these conversations need to be happening in caucus meetings. Like, why are we not debating policy? Help us understand what the goals are. I mean, it's hard to be a
and
team
that's
player and nothing's ever talked about except for what time breakfast is going to be. And so the last 2 weeks, I have to say, have been better. We have had more dialogue. Again, you're stuck between a lot of talking heads when you don't understand and don't hear specifically from leadership what priorities are or how we go about them. So that has
right.
created some of the friction, I think, and hopefully that's being alleviated. That's something that we're taking care of and addressing.
So
Um,
that floor leader is Senator O'Laughlin. Is that
yes,
correct?
yeah. And
Yeah.
so, like I said, I gave her kudos. I think Monday when I went up, I had a conversation with her about a couple of my bills that another senator seems to be having a difficult time giving me a hearing for. And so I went to talk to her and said, if this is how it's going to be, then I'm going to have an awfully difficult time. You guys force us into a corner.
Well, that's the whole game. They want to isolate you, especially as a Freedom Caucus member, because you've actually had the backbone to stand up and say, no, I represent my district. I don't represent your special interest groups. I don't represent the big money that's coming in and influence why we have CRT, why we have all these things in our education system, all the hospitals that are donating, that have our healthcare so screwed up right now, but they're paying you guys big bucks to sit on bills that only benefit them. So when somebody like you or Senator Eigel or Senator Moon or the other caucus members actually stand up with a backbone and say, no, enough's enough. We played this. You guys have played this game way too long. And it takes almost freshmen, new people with new blood that aren't career politicians like yourself to get in there and shake things up. And that's what I'm so proud of. I mean, when I see you fighting in there, it really makes me have faith back in our system again, that actually somebody will stand up for our district.
Well, and
You know,
again, it's always it's so fluid up there, and so you're trying to walk it out with as much integrity as you can. Give kudos where kudos is deserved, but then calling each other out when no, this is not right. And
right?
so it really kind of is a war of words at times, and it's unfortunate. But unless we're willing to recognize the truth and the reality of where we exist, right, and the reality of what it is, it's never going to be better.
No,
And so you
you
just
know.
have
And
to go ahead.
go ahead. No, I'm sorry. I didn't. I thought you were
No,
done.
no, no. I
I
was
got a
just
little
going to,
bit of a delay here.
no, we just have to be willing to have these kinds of conversations, and they're heavy and uncomfortable,
Yeah.
but I think they're worth
And
it.
I think the American people are. Don't be. I mean, from what I've been hearing, I sit in the coffee shops. I sit. I go out and talk to people. And they've had enough. They've had enough on the national level. They're tired of giving money to Ukraine. They're tired of wars. They're tired of politicians spending our money like it's free money, like they just print it and spend it. So, no, American people are, I think, ready for justice. I think justice is a good word because we
Well,
haven't
and it,
had it in a long time.
no, and it's something that I talk about, with leadership. I've mentioned to my leadership, look, unless you start validating the reality of life out there, spending time in your schools, spending time on the streets with your police officers, spending time with the juvenile officers, spending time with judges, spending time in the courthouses, spending time with just your average person, business owners who are trying to make a living. um, you realize how difficult it is for people right now to be putting gas in their car and food on the table. And we pretend like nothing's different, and it is. And
Right.
so,
It is
it's
different.
it is different. Like, you have to validate them. Otherwise, you end up creating more animosity and more angst and more of a desire to just burn it down. And that is not a
Right.
direction we want to go. And so
Absolutely.
that's kind of what weighs on my heart, to say, I have 4 years to represent you the best that I can.
Right.
I'm confident that if I keep up the way that I'm going, we'll get challenged, and I just have to leave that. There's the temptation, everybody's saying, well, if you don't do this, you'll know you're going to get challenged. I'm just counting on it.
Right.
And at the end of the day, this is what I've said to them. I have to lay my pillow, my head on my pillow at night, knowing that with the 4 years that I did, I worked as hard as I could for the people that are, you know, um, wanting something better for our country and wanting something better for our state.
And you didn't break your values or the values of your District 32 people that sent you there specifically for those values. We didn't want you to bow a knee, to make the backroom deals. We'll give you a little bit to get a little bit. That's what we're tired of. So I got to give you kudos for going up there and being able to put the gloves on and duke it up a little bit. And you're also not the person that's totally abrasive. I know you. You come together, you can unify, and you can negotiate a good deal. That's what you do. You go in. Nobody wants to argue about it. You want to
No,
negotiate the best possible outcome for your district.
right.
So it'll be interesting. Next week, I know don't you have something going through committee like the Missouri Southern expansion for the mission expansion? I think
Yeah,
that's what it
that's
is,
some.
right? I'm a graduate from Missouri Southern. I was a criminal justice graduate from there. So,
Yeah, no, I love. We have great representation there with the dean. We have a good relationship with him. He came up and testified last week for the mission statement. This is a no brainer for the college to be able to expand their life sciences, health sciences, and also their immersion programs. And so, yeah, it's just these little things like that I love seeing wins in our district for the people here. And so I'm just going to keep advocating for those things, and doing
and
what we
that
can.
that goes through the committee that you're sitting on, the parents and children.
Empowering parents and children.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I was told, like I said, I was told that would go through. It's already been through one committee, but really to do it right, it needs to be a statute change. And
Right.
so there's two ways of doing it. We filed both, but my hope is to be able to do it the right way and do that through the statute change. So hopefully we'll have a hearing on that this week.
And
And
that
just,
committee chair is Senator Trent
yes, for just,
from, I think
yep.
he's our neighboring senator. I think I was raised in Dade County, born in Greene County. So I think he's the senator for the west part of Springfield
Yes,
in
you've
that
got data
area. Is that correct?
to have. Yeah.
So really, if it didn't go through, there's only one person that I'm going to look at and say, well, because he's the one that brings it to the committee, correct? And you have a Republican majority, so there's absolutely no reason if it doesn't get brought up and brought through. And as a Missouri Southern graduate, I'm going to be a little frustrated if this thing doesn't go through quickly.
Yeah, no, like I said, it's not even it's just a tweak. It's not even, it's a token piece of legislation that just helps them expand, doesn't negatively impact anyone. It had to go through the coordinating board of higher ed and get approved there first. So none of the universities have a problem with it. Everything's good. So like I said, I'm optimistic and hopeful and confident that we're going to get it done. But it's these
Okay.
kinds of things that sometimes, you know, you just want to be honest with your people and say, this is how it is.
Right.
So, do you want me to sell my soul, or do you want to,
Right.
tell the truth and again, it's not to cast stones at somebody, to say this is the absolute reality of where we are, and it doesn't need to be this way. That's what's so unfortunate.
I don't think you should worry about that, because I think we could have probably 2,000 to 3,000 people pick up the phone and call Senator Trent next week if this thing isn't brought through with some efficiency, or at least the normal standard of doing business, not this tit for tat type thing. Have you ever heard of an apple polisher? Do you know what that is?
I have not. Do you educate?
Yeah.
Tell
Well, when you're in school and you always had that one student that brought the teacher an apple and smiled when the teacher was looking and set up proper and raised his hand and wanted to answer every question. And then as soon as the teacher turned his back, he was throwing spitballs at you.
Yeah.
That's an apple polisher.
Tracking.
So I'm starting to. I've got a new term that I'm going to write an article on who our apple polishers are in the Senate, because they look good, they look shiny, they say the right things, they're conservatives, they got that beautiful shiny apple right there, and then as soon as they're in the shadows, they're throwing spit wads and making dirty deals, and we're tired of it, to be honest. That's why I started this show, and I got Senator Eigel coming on February 23rd. I'm gonna reach out to the other Freedom Caucus members. I'd love to get them on. I would talk to anybody. I'd talk to Senator Trent. I
No,
want to know
that's how I
what the
am. I
deal
mean,
is.
I always like to put somebody in the position of a hero, you know,
Right,
set them up for success. That's my MO. I do that with my kids. I've just always been that way. Like, help me help you be the hero. You know what I'm saying?
right,
What can I do to help you be successful? Because when your boats, all high tides raise all boats. When you're successful, that makes me successful. And
right,
I don't begrudge that. But when you start to
right.
stand in the way of the success of other people, I take big issue with that. And so,
Especially, especially if you're an apple polisher, it's always about moving up the ladder. You sell your soul, you polish the apple extra nice for the teacher, so you can move up to the next position. And we don't like apple polishers. We like we don't
well,
like
in
that.
all honesty, I don't know I would not, to any other person, I don't know what drives them or motivates them. And honestly, I don't care. I'm not wasting
Right,
my time.
right,
But because where my heart is for our district and for the people here. And so I'm going to assume that if your sentiment and your heart is the same for your people in your district, then you're not going to have a problem with me advocating for my people in my district. And like I said,
exactly.
as Republicans, we should be completely aligned on policy and principle.
Yeah.
So
Especially
where's
for Missouri Southern.
yeah,
Missouri Southern, just a simple, adjustment to their mission statement, so that it's an expansion to help them improve, to provide a better services to their students. That helps our community.
well, somebody,
So,
we'll get it done. I'm confident we'll get it
okay.
done.
If you don't, let me know, because I got 3,000 on the standby.
No, so like I said, we're gonna set him up to be an advocate for MSSU, and and
And I hope he becomes a great partner, because I think he knows that you could be a great alliance and work
yeah,
together to get some great things done,
yeah. Like I said, it's never my intent to cast shade on somebody, but
Yeah. But
you give
we, the
everything.
people, aren't interested in the tit for tat and the
No,
dirty pop.
no,
We're not ready. We're done with it.
this is this isn't drama. Nobody wants
Yeah.
drama. They want
I know you're
results.
busy, and I know you made a statement on your, I think it was Facebook or Twitter, I can't remember which, but we had a devastating shooting um, at the Kansas City parade, and you know the first thing, it seems always to be divided by, let's take away the guns, not let's hold those criminals, those mentally ill, even possibly gang members. We don't know. We don't know who it was,
Right,
but
right.
don't hold those evil people accountable. Let's just take away the only thing that is preventing, the reason we have a Second Amendment is for government tyranny. And I think if you look across America right now, that's their number one concern. We're being invaded in our border, not only the southern border, but the northern border. They're coming across Canada in floods. And where is our government?
Well, in all honesty, when it really comes to, there's all of that peripheral, right? All of those issues that are coming that we could talk about for quite a while. But honestly, at the end of the day, I'm a mom, a wife, I'm a woman.
Right,
Nobody's going to tell me that I don't have a right to defend myself.
right,
So, my husband works, whatever else. Like, I mean, I love strong men and I surround myself with good, strong men. But when it
right,
comes down to it, I better have the right to, as a mama bear, right? Nobody's going to take
right.
away my right to protect myself or my kids or my family.
Yeah. I've lived in probably 30 countries overseas. I've been in the ones that ban firearms completely, and there's always one common denominator. It's typically there's a tyrannical government that, you know, they don't want the people to have a way to collectively defend themselves against, whatever foreign or domestic threat that's in our constitution, right?
Right.
I'm not a big rah rah rah. Everybody's got to have an AR-15, but I think everybody should have the right to defend themselves. And when I'm overseas in these places, that's usually the one common denominator is they're very socialist in their frame of thought, and they're the ones who want to implement the social credit scores. They're the one that wants to control you. It's because they can now, because there's no way, if you had to defend yourself or
Right.
even fight back from a
Yeah.
tyrannical government. So
Right.
anyway, I'll get off my soapbox. But I know our hearts and prayers are with the Kansas City uh, people that were injured and shot. And I know they're kids. It's horrific.
Yeah.
But, you know, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but these things just seem to always pop up, during these election cycles. I don't know if it's I don't know. I don't know. It just seems like there's been an evil that's been encroaching on the United States, and our mentally ill, our drug addicted, our criminals, our narco terrorists who are bringing in fentanyl, killing our kids. They don't
Well, like
want.
I said, I sometimes I see this with so many issues where we don't like. I would meet with anybody and sit down and talk about them. I don't
Yeah,
care about your political leanings. I do
right.
care about our country, and I do care about, like I said, principles and what this looks like. What is it that we want for ourselves? We're not victims
No.
in a country where the people have a say. So long as we're willing to have these kind of bigger conversations, but I say that to say this, that oftentimes we do not unpackage these issues the way that we should. We're not talking about what's going on with our kids. We're not talking about drug abuse. We're not talking about our borders. We're not talking about all these contributing factors, but we are talking about whether or not we should limit our gun rights. You know, same with the IP reform. We're not talking about all these other issues. We have canned answers that just become sound bites that keep everybody enraged and prevent
Yeah.
each other from having conversations. And I think it is the number one thing that makes me sad for our country right now is, look, we're so busy putting each other in boxes that we can't even have honest conversations. And so
Well, that makes me very happy that you're not falling into the emotional polarization. You see the polarization and you see through that, and you're ready to bring people together for the right values. And hats off for that. Senator Carter, I know you're busy. Is there anything you'd like to talk about next week, or anything that's upcoming that's near and dear to your heart before we close?
yeah, no, I just that we have the night for the people coming up.
Yeah.
I hope to see so many of you there. It's so much easier to have conversations like this one in person.
Right.
Um, I truly believe that it's going to come down to us knowing each other better and
Mm-hmm.
who we are at our core. And so I'm just asking you to be a part of everyone to
And
be a
that's
part.
that's March 15th. The doors open at 5:30.
Yeah,
Starts at 6 p.m. It's the Joplin Worship Center on East 7th, and they need to
under
RSVP with
Joplin
yeah
Family Worship Center. Yeah,
Joplin Family Worship, and then they need to register with Reggie at jillforsenate.com, and I'll
yeah,
put that in the description.
that'd be
Um, I'm a homeschooler. I homeschool a 17-year-old who's a junior this year and a 13-year-old, and we have them in homeschool basketball. So we have our own league that we get to play in. So they get to participate in sports, but they get to also travel when we travel overseas. So I'm talking to some of these homeschoolers next week. I'd like to, if we could, maybe touch on any of the legislation that might be affecting a homeschooler, a parent. Um, I don't know, and maybe I put out on there if we could get some questions from the homeschoolers that they might be able to email them in, and we can ask you about those questions. And if
yeah,
there's anything that that's impacting them next week, we'd love to hear about that.
that'd be great. I'd love to do that. Education right now is
Okay.
the forefront of really big pivotal changes, and how we move forward was going to impact people for generations. So,
Okay. Senator Carter, I know you're busy. I appreciate you. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next week.
all right. Thank you so much, Johnny. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Senator. Bye bye.